Focusing is hard. I've always had trouble focusing on studying, on work. There's always something to distract me, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. But there are ways to beat procrastination, and one of those ways is called the Pomodoro Technique, and I'm going to teach you how to use it today. So I used the Pomodoro Technique 6 years ago when I was studying Japanese, and it helped me learn so many kanji and just to speak Japanese because it really helped me focus on studying, which can be really boring. But if you focus on it and get it done, it's invaluable when it comes to language learning. Nowadays, I actually use it for video editing and working on my YouTube channel and Patreon. And man, I wish I remembered it sooner. After I finished studying Japanese, I completely forgot about it and didn't rediscover it until about a month or two ago. In that month or two, I've gotten more work done than I think I did in the previous 6 months, just because it just helps me focus so much on various tasks that sometimes I just honestly find really hard to get started. So my hope is that this technique can help you focus on the things that you've been putting off, but that could really help you get ahead on your studies or in your work or whatever it is that you want to do in life. So let's talk about the Pomodoro Technique. So what is the Pomodoro Technique? Well, it's a type of time boxing. The term was coined by Francesco Cirillo, I think that's how you say his name, in Italian while he was in college. It's derived from the word tomato in Italian, and the reason is because he used to use a tomato timer to actually use this technique when he was in university. So how do you use the Pomodoro Technique? Well, it's actually quite simple. It's just 25 minutes of work followed by a short 5-minute break. But there is a little bit more to it than that. The original instructions were to decide on a task, then set a timer. These 25-minute blocks of time are called Pomodoros. Then work on only that task while the timer ticked down next to you. After the timer went off after 25 minutes, you put a check on a piece of paper. If there's less than 4 check marks, then you take a 3 to 5 minute break. If there's 4 check marks, then you take a longer break, for example, 15 to 30 minutes, and then you start all over again. Fortunately, there's lots of apps that can take care of this task for you now instead of actually having to set a timer and write things down on a piece of paper. I'm going to go over some of those a little bit later in the video, so stick around for that. Now, I personally use different apps when I use the Pomodoro Technique. I find them a lot more rewarding, especially the gamified ones, than just writing it down on a piece of paper. But what I did find is that it works really well to help me stay focused, especially when I don't really feel like working that day. 25 minutes doesn't feel like that long, and the little breaks really help keep me focused. So the rules I lived by when I was using the Pomodoro Technique were basically don't change activities after you've started. But what I mean by that is not just to any other work activity. I mean, focus on one activity and don't answer the phone, don't answer text messages, don't open a web browser unless you're working in the web browser. Don't go get a drink of water. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't stop what you're doing until the timer goes off. If I finished early, I usually had a task waiting to go, like my next task. Some of the official recommendations for the Pomodoro Technique are review and edit what you've just completed. Start working on new tasks. Review the activity you just did and see if you could do it better. Or just quit the time block and cancel your checkmark. The most important part of this technique for me was to ignore all incoming messages, all social media, all my phone. Like, I don't touch my phone while I'm doing one of these techniques. And if I come up with something that I really need to do, like I need to go mail something or I need to clean the toilet, I'll write that down on a piece of paper or type it off on my computer somewhere just so that I remember it for later. Often I'll throw it on a to-do list, like to do. So just to recap, to use the Pomodoro Technique, first decide on what you're gonna do, set a timer for 25 minutes, and then do just that task for 25 minutes. Ignore all incoming social media messages, phone calls, everything. If you have to stop doing the task, cancel your timer and restart from the beginning. After the timer goes off, take a 3 to 5 minute break unless it's your 4th Pomodoro. In that case, take a longer 15 to 30 minute break or call it a day, depending on the time of day. So let's talk a little bit about the 2 apps that I found most useful while I've been using the Pomodoro Technique. The first one is a game called Pomodoro. Now, Pomodoro is a pretty old game, and it uses Adobe Flash, which isn't gonna be supported in Windows and a lot of web browsers in a short amount of time, but maybe they'll update it sometime. I loved it while I was studying Japanese. In fact, there's a scoreboard, like an online scoreboard, and I still hold 17th, 60th, and 63rd place on that scoreboard. The reason is because when I switched computers, you couldn't actually bring your account over with you, so I had to restart 2 times. I'm not a big fan of that, but I did find it a lot of fun to run around in the world during my breaks and fight monsters and move around the map. The main features of it are a 25-minute timer. It is not possible to edit that timer, so you can't change the amount of time for other time boxing techniques. By finishing Pomodoros, you gain currency, basically gold, which you can use to buy equipment, like swords or armor and other things. During your breaks, you can check out a map, which is basically like a fantasy map, and each city or area on the map is inhabited by various monsters, which you're able to fight with those swords and armor you just bought. Fighting them gives you experience, which helps you level up your character. And you can then upload your Pomodoros, completed Pomodoros, to a scoreboard that's live on the internet. Productivity Challenge Timer! Productivity Challenge Timer is really cool because, for starters, it's an app. Back when I was studying Japanese, I really wanted something like Pomodoro M, but on my cell phone. And unfortunately, there was just nothing really like that out there at the time. Nowadays, there's lots of different apps that can function as the Pomodoro technique for you, but none of them were gamified enough. Productivity Challenge Timer, despite its admittedly boring name, has actually gamified it almost enough. I would love for it to be a little bit more gamified, but still, there's achievements, there's ranks, there's encouragement messages built into it, and some, how should I put it, talking down to you to convince you to actually get work done. Projects that you're working on, and track what you're doing within those projects. Stats that track your work every day for months, for years, just to give you an idea of how much work you're actually getting done each day. The stats menu has lots of cool charts, such as your overall time worked in a week or a month or all time, charts that show the minutes worked each day, charts that show your average by day of the week, and by hours. It also shows the time you've spent on each project that you've listed within the app. Another thing I really like is the battery saving mode, which is actually called OLED mode. Now, this is supposed to save OLED screens from having burned in images. So if you leave the timer up permanently, it can burn that image into OLED screens sometimes. So instead, this has a little orange sort of progress bar, very tiny. And it saves your battery, but it's also a really good way to sort of track where you're at in your project. If you want to, you're getting a little antsy, you can look over and say, ooh, I'm almost done, and get back to work. It also tracks your breaks this way with a cool little green timer. The scheduling mode I haven't actually used yet because my daily schedule is so varied. I actually have a regular job on top of my YouTube and Patreon work. So it's hard to set an actual schedule that I can stick to weekly, but I imagine it would be very useful for students or people who do have a set schedule. If you don't care about gamifying your Pomodoro technique, then there's lots of other apps both for desktop and for phone out there, or you could just use a regular old timer. Long story short, the Pomodoro technique can help you stay focused on the projects that you need to get done, but don't quite have the willpower to focus on. It helps you get past that procrastination and basically the excuses you can make. When you hit that button, there's nothing left to do but get done. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, crush that like button. And if you're interested in learning Japanese or learning more about studying in general, hit that subscribe button. See you next time. Bye.